Hello guys, so in this video we are going to continue with the installation of MySQL server that we just left on the way from the previous video. So in the previous video, I had shown you on how to download the MySQL server to your machine, to the downloads folder in your machine. So then in this video, I'm going to take you through on how to proceed to install that particular server that you have downloaded to your local machine for development purpose. So in my case, actually the download for MySQL has finished. As you can see, that file is up here on the downloads. So I'm going to open my file explorer and then open my downloads folder to access that particular file. And as you can see, that Windows installer file is already up here. So I'm going to click on it, and once you click on it, it will open you a welcome page for installing the MySQL server. And in the welcome page, it normally shows you the version of the MySQL server that you intend to install. So in our case, we are installing MySQL server version 9.1. So the next thing you should do is to click next, where you are going to be given a page containing a list or documentation of the terms and conditions associated with the MySQL server. So once you go and read through them, once you finish, you're supposed to click on the checkbox that is down here before you can proceed to the next part. So in this part, it has three types of setups on which you can choose from to install on your machine. So the first one is the typical one. Actually, this is the one that is recommended for most users because it installs the most common features that are associated with the MySQL server, mostly for developers. The custom one is the one that you select the features that you want to install and the ones that you don't want to use. The complete one is actually the one that installs all features that are associated with MySQL. But with this one, you normally have to have enough disk to accommodate the installation of all those features, because normally it takes a bigger space for, or it normally requires a bigger space to install those packages that are associated with MySQL server. And also, it normally takes a lot of time for the installation process to complete. So in my case, I'm going to select the typical one because we want to install features, most common features that are associated with MySQL. So I will select the first one, and then I will be brought to the page where I will be, where when you click that one, the installation will commence immediately. So the moment I click install, you can see the installation process will start actually immediately. So on this page, you are supposed to confirm, and then the installation process commences immediately. So depending on the speed of your machine, so the installation will take from some seconds to some minutes. So mine is faster, so it has actually finished the process. So the next thing is to click on finish. But before you click on finish, ensure that MySQL configurator is actually checked, this one. So because we want, once you finish the installation, we want to proceed to configure the MySQL now itself. So that's why you should ensure that each time that you click finish, this is checked. This checkbox is checked. So I will click finish, and I will be asked to allow. You're supposed to allow. So this will finish, and after some time, you will see it will open a config setup dialog or windows, from which you will proceed to install or to configure the server as it is required. So the first page or the first window it shows you the welcoming a welcome message to where? To MySQL Server Configurator. So it's from this point we configure our server depending what we need. So the next thing is to click next. So the first installation you are told is about MySQL Server installation. And from this, you can see major setup that the MySQL Server is going to use. So you can see the protocol is actually TCP IP, and then it's going to use a port of the 306. Okay. So on this one, you are not supposed to change anything. Uh, uh, so, uh, and we have actually two. So the first one is to perform a place upgrade of the existing MySQL. So in this one, uh, so this one, maybe you have a MySQL server already installed on your machine, and now you are supposed to select this option to continue to upgrade that particular server that is already there. But in our case, this was a new installation, so we are not going to select this. We are going to come here and select this one down here, because this is a completely new server instance that we are trying to create. We haven't set up a new one that maybe was in our machine, but this is a new one. So the next thing is to create a new server instance. So that's why you're not supposed to select this. You only select this when there is a server that is already there that needs upgrade. But in our case, we want to create a new instance. So you select this one and then click next. So once you do that, you'll be brought to another page that shows you some type and networking. So on this page, what you are supposed to do is to see some of the settings that are associated also to the network. And the first part, as you can see, we have a drop down. And the first part is for development computer, server computer, dedicated computer. So we want to install this server on our machine. So we are going to leave it the way it is, development computer. And then other things, actually here you are not supposed to change anything. You are supposed to leave it default the way it is. On this, the specified port is already in use. So on my machine, actually, I had installed XAMPP, which is using that port. So what I will do, I will just stop this one and then close. So the port was in use by XAMPP, so that's why you see there was an error here. So because now I have just stopped the MySQL server, so I'm supposed to refresh that page. So to do that, I will have to go back and then come to that page. So we will see that error is just gone. Reason being, the XAMPP was using this particular port, which I want to use to install, which I want MySQL to use in doing communication on the network. So the next thing actually is, in short, by default on this page, you're not supposed to change anything. Only on this. This is actually if you want to install this, you are installing this on the server. That's when you will have to change on this. But because we want to install this on our local machine for development purpose, you leave the first option. The next thing is to click next. Now on this part, this is now where you are supposed to be very keen on where you set. Because now on this part, you will be asked to set up the password. And then that password is the one that you will use to access your server. So this is the root password for that main user or root user. So in our case, I'm going to proceed and set a password. Good. I'm going to repeat that password down here. Good. So And once you do that, you finish, you will be told there's a rating based on the password that you put. Password can be weak or strong. So, and normally it's advisable that you use a strong password, which no one will be able, because actually MySQL data deals with MySQL server deals with mostly storing database, which contain very sensitive data to users. So the root password, the person accessing the server, that password, you have to make it strong so that someone may not be able to access the database that easy, or maybe do working on the same. The next part is actually users. So in the case where you want to add a user to a DB, who will be accessing that particular DB, this is the section where you can add that particular user. So you come here, click add, and type the username. So in this case, I'm going to type Ricky, and then host. Host actually it's localhost. Okay, you can select localhost. That's on your local machine. But if you leave all localhost, that means even when you have a machine on your network, you can access the localhost on the network from another machine. So or a database can be hosted on a different machine on the network, and it can be accessed from another machine. So that's actually what it meant by this one. But in my case, actually, I want to leave it at limited to localhost. So I will select that one, and then you're going to select from the roles that are down here. So there are roles based depending on the role that you give, it will give that user the rights on what items to view on the MySQL server. So in this case, actually, I want to give this user admin rights. So grant the rights to perform all tasks. So I will select the admin, this one, so that the user can have all the rights to this DB or this server. So the next thing is also to type a password for this user, and then confirm that password. And once you finish, the OK button will be active, from which you can click OK. Once you do that, you will see that that user will be added down here. So you can add several users depending the number of users that you want. And then once you're done, that's when you click on next. So on this page, it's going to show you the Windows services config that are already there. So the first one is actually the Windows server name, the name of the server that is going to be. So this is the name that the server is identified with. So like now, if I type here, let me say this as a, I'm referring to maybe a school. So you can have a branch one server. So let's say we have two schools, and each school, we have two schools with the same name, with the same actual, is a school but with two branches. So in each branch of that particular school, it has its own server. So the name that you put here, let's say branch one, branch two, branch three, that's the name that will identify that particular server. In short, this is the name that identifies the name of the server. Run Windows service. So normally we have so on this part, normally it's actually something to do with the security requirements of the system. So on this, normally we don't change anything unless you want to customize based on the user. But we normally recommend, actually it's recommended that you leave it default the way it is, and you click next. So on this part, this is the file that does with permission. So when you install this file to do with MySQL server, they requires permissions to be granted. So the first part, which will show you the directory to which the files associated with MySQL are going to be installed. And then the next question, they will ask you, do you want MySQL configurator to upgrade the server file permission for you? So that's actually a question that you are asked. So you are supposed to select from these choices that you are given. So if you select yes and if you select yes, grant full access. So full access would be granted to this file. And then if you select yes, but let me review then the configurable access. So on this, that means everything that will be installed, you will be supposed, there's a window that's going to pop up for you to configure, for you to select on what items to allow and which one not to allow. And then we have a third option, no, I will manage the permission, from which you're going to manage those permissions you personally. So normally we leave this one as default, yes, the first option, and then click next. So on this page, you'll be taken a page from where it will ask you, maybe you want to have some sample databases installed during the installation, or you don't want. So in the case maybe you want, you will just select the Sakila database and the Word database. So these are the sample database that will be installed along the installation of the configs commences. So we click continue, which is next. So on these, you will see the steps that actually are supposed to take place for us to apply these configurations. So on this page, once we are here, the next thing we are supposed to do is to click execute button. So once you do this one, so the config the configs are going to start being applied one by one, starting with the first one. So normally these goes depending on the speed of your machine. There are cases where this will take some minutes, a lot of some minutes before it can finish. And in some cases, actually this is instant. So once you once you apply the configuration, those configuration will be applied as you can see. And once they are finished, you will just click next. And then you will be brought to the page that alerts you that you have already finished. You are almost done with the configuring the server. So the only thing that is left to do is just to click on the finish button, finish button. And just simply by doing so, you will have actually installed, or you will have completed installing your MySQL server. So you can go ahead and test now if the MySQL server has really been installed or not. So what you do next is to type you click on Windows and then you search for MySQL. So to type Windows, so is to click on the Windows icon, and from this you are going to search for MySQL. So once you type MySQL, you will have MySQL server client here, from which you can open the terminal, which you can use to access the server. So you see, when opening this one, you will be brought to this terminal, from which it will prompt you to input the password, that the root password that you set initially. So I'm going to proceed and enter the password that I set during the installation process. And as you can see, we have just accessed the server. I mean the MySQL database that we have just installed. So just a quick one. Let me proceed and show you some of the sample databases that actually were installed along. So this is the command that you normally use to type to see the databases that are already. So show database, when you click enter, it will show you some of the sample databases that were installed during the installation process. So guys, so thank you once again. So I expect you in the next video where I'll be taking you through on how to install MySQL Workbench. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.